This is the NFL. This is the NFL. This is the NFL.
Rookie head coach Ted Marchibroda's Baltimore Colts rise and fall on the strong right arm of third-year quarterback Burt Jones. But last week against the Chicago Bears, Jones added a new dimension to the Colt attack. Jones's wanderings from the pocket set up Baltimore's passing game nicely, as rifle arm Burt drilled wide receiver Glenn Doughty in the Chicago end zone. Jones completed 15 passes on the day for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, and his second scoring toss looked pretty much like the first. The Jones to Doughty combination accounted for 2 touchdowns and some fancy spiking, as Burt Jones led the young incoming Baltimore Colts to an opening day win in Ted Marchibroda's head coaching debut.
In Baltimore, Robert Merrill of the New York Metropolitan Opera sang the national anthem. And then the Colts wide receiver Glenn Doughty, number 35, struck up his own victory melody as he gathered in a pass from Burt Jones and danced through the surprised Oakland Raiders secondary for a touchdown. It gave the Colts an early lead. The underdog Colts led 10-0 in the first quarter and seemed to be marching to a winning tune until Oakland's defensive backs stopped the music. Embarrassed and angered by Baltimore's early lead, the rugged Raider defenders initiated an assault and battery type defense that roughed up the Colts receivers and disrupted their passing patterns. Oakland's defense repeatedly turned back Baltimore scoring threats. And Neil Colsey, number 45, a rookie from Ohio State, ended one Colt drive with a leaping interception. Colsey wasn't the only standout for the Oakland defense. Art Toms, number 80, a veteran defensive tackle, returned to the starting lineup and added some punch to the pass rush. Raider coach John Madden calls Toms one of the finest defensive linemen in the league. And there are days such as this Sunday against the Colts when he appears to be just that. Toms not only excelled as a pass rusher, but his quick pursuit stymied Baltimore's ground game, and by the fourth quarter, the Colts offense had just about fizzled out. We tried everything, Burt Jones said, but nothing seemed to work. Raider quarterback Ken Stabler found the solutions to his problems much easier. After an unproductive first half, Stabler began to probe the Colts secondary with medium-range passes to Fred Biletnikoff, number 25. Although several passes to Biletnikoff were successful, the Raiders quickly discovered that the Colts were using 5 defensive backs in an effort to blanket Oakland's dangerous receivers. Coach John Madden countered Baltimore's defensive strategy by sending in wide receiver Mike Ciani, number 49, in place of a running back. The additional wide receiver neutralized the extra deep back in the Colts secondary and forced Baltimore into man-on-man coverage. With Biletnikoff and Ciani on one side and speedy Cliff Branch on the other, the Colts were forced to go one-on-one against Branch. Stabler capitalized on the coverage and threw to Branch, who outmaneuvered Nelson Muncy.
Pass protection would also play a vital role in the Los Angeles Coliseum, where an improving Baltimore Colt offensive line spared quarterback Burt Jones the anguish and pain generally associated with the powerful Ram pass rush. Jones stood tall in that pocket while delivering 2 scoring strikes, one to his setback Bill Oles, number 38. The Colts, whose rebuilding program seems at last to be paying off with young quality talent, feature a host of genuine hitmen on the defense. And for at least the first half last week, Rambacks saw more than they cared to of the energetic Colt defenders. But as well as Baltimore played, the experience and poise of the veteran Ram offensive line was just too tough to overcome. And paced by solid blocks by Cowan, Max Saul, Shabelli, and Williams, L.A. came back and marched past the Colts. Number 30, Lawrence McCutcheon breezed in for 1 Ram score, while quarterback James Harris took a loftier route to the end zone for 2 more Ram touchdowns. Harris nailed number 29, Harold Jackson, for his first scoring shot, then iced the win with a pretty toss and catch to speedster Ron Jesse, number 81. Jesse's classy catch climaxed a 24-13 Los Angeles win. The Rams' experience and poise during the final quarter had paid off, and it is this poise mixed with spirited enthusiasm which has earned the Rams their last 2 victories, and it's a formula which may well earn them many, many more.
Program here, program, full action lineup right here, today's game, Colts and the Bills, programs.
To beat the Buffalo Bills, you must first stop O.J. Simpson. It is a challenging task, and the Colts knew their chances for an upset would depend on their ability to devise a defense that would contain O.J. Simpson.
We are going to use something different. We've used it before. It's a 4-4 defense, and this is something that we use successfully in Los Angeles, and it's something we've used a little bit this year, but not very much, and I hope that they haven't practiced it. And when you're trying to stop O.J. Simpson, sometimes you feel like you're whistling against the wind, but the guy is a great football player, and you stress containment, good pursuit, and gang tackling, and a lot of the things that are basics in football, but to stop a good one, you've got to do that.
Maxie Bond's strategy was predicated on Simpson's tendency to run the same side as the tight end Paul Seymour, who usually lines up on the right side. To strengthen their defense, the Colts moved their defensive back Ray Oldham up into a linebacking position. With Oldham, the Colts now had 4 linebackers behind their 4 rush men. This 4-4 defense is effective against the run because it presents an 8-man front, yet the 4 linebackers give it mobility as well. Throughout the first quarter, Baltimore's 4-4 defense fulfilled its expectations, and Simpson was held in check. Baltimore's offense was also effective early in the game. Burt Jones belabored the Bills with his accurate passing. A 53-yard reception by Glenn Doughty, number 35, set up the first of Lydell Mitchell's 4 touchdowns. Mitchell, number 26, is typical of the new breed of running back, who can catch as well as run. Jones made good use of Mitchell's skills as the Colts surged to a surprising 14-0 lead. But Baltimore's lead quickly disappeared when O.J. Simpson began to find running room on the outside. Unable to run off tackle, the Bills relied on in sweeps instead, and O.J. skirted right in on a sweep for Buffalo's first touchdown. The continued success of the wide running game set the stage for a carefully concealed play-action pass that completely fooled Baltimore's congested defense and sent the Bills into the lead at halftime 24-21. At the opening of the second half, Baltimore coach Ted Marchibroda tried to restore his team's fading momentum.
Let's go now. We got to do much. We got 30 minutes in the game. You're going to remember all your life. You got it? You're going to remember this football game all your life. Now, damn it, let's get it out.
The Colts battle back to score 10 more points in the second half. But unfortunately, the game will not be a happy memory. Simpson sparked one touchdown drive for Buffalo, and quarterback Joe Ferguson ignited another with a 63-yard pass to John Holland, number 80. Big Jim Braxton charged around in the final period to seal a 38-31 victory for the Bills. It was Buffalo's 4th straight victory, and for O.J. Simpson, it was just another routine day. 32 carries, 159 yards, all of them against a defense specifically designed to stop him.
Last Sunday, the Patriots' corner linebacker Steve Zabel, number 54, single-handedly demolished the Baltimore Colts running game by slanting in from his outside position on the 3-4. Time after time, Zabel sliced into the Colt backfield on a sharp pursuit angle and caught the ball carrier at the scrimmage line. Zabel's successful blitzes prompted a similar strategy by Baltimore's linebackers. But the Patriots quarterback Jim Plunkett beat their blitz with a quick pitch out to Andy Johnson, who outraced the Colts to the sideline, then dashed upfield for 66 yards. Johnson's touchdown clinched New England's first victory of the year, 21-10. The affair between Joe Namath and the city of New York has been no mere autumn romance. He has quarterbacked the Jets for 11 years, and to his loyal followers, he will always be the most exciting passer in football. Throughout Namath's career, the Jets have lived off the passing game. But this season, unlike others, they are dying by it. In 6 games, Namath has thrown 16 interceptions, the most in pro football. On defense as well as on offense, the passing game has killed the Jets through the first half of the season. Their secondary has been consistently outmaneuvered, and as a result, the Jets have been scored on more often than any team in the NFL. Another factor in New York's defensive demise has been a woefully weak pass rush. New acquisitions like Big Billy Newsome have the quickness to reach the quarterback and frequently have seemed on the verge of a sack, only to have the quarterback escape and use the extra time to find the open spot in the secondary. Last Sunday, Newsome and the rest of the Jets' front four learned a great deal about rushing the passer from the Baltimore Colts, who forced Joe Namath to make 7 crash landings on the Memorial Stadium turf, including 3 voluntary belly flops to avoid the Colts' fierce rush. When Namath found the time to throw, however, he was right on target for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. But until the Jets learn to pursue and tackle, this will never be enough to ensure victory. Baltimore's quarterback Burt Jones raced through the scattered Jet defenses for an early lead. Then the Colts went on to score 5 more touchdowns, amassing over 400 yards and thoroughly defeating the defenseless Jets 45-28. The Baltimore Colts may not go to the playoffs this year, but new coach Ted Marchibroda will always be a hero in Baltimore. 20 years ago, the Steelers decided to keep Marchibroda and release a rookie named John Unitas. Marchibroda learned his football as an assistant to George Allen. His opponent last Sunday, Forrest Gregg, played for the Green Bay Packers and teaches Lombardi-style football. When Gregg took over as head coach of the Cleveland Browns, he insisted that all his players wear coats and ties on the road. The Browns may win the Best Dressed Team award this year, but not much else. In fact, they may not equal last year's 4-10 record. What the Browns need most of all is a defense. They have given up the most yards and the most touchdown passes in the NFL. An obvious weakness has been their pass rush. Powerful rushmen like Ron East, number 77, often become too concerned with punishing the offensive blocker. East ignores the direct route to the passer, and instead he blindly powers into his own teammates, and the whole Cleveland rush line is piled up on one side of Colt quarterback Burt Jones. Cleveland's clumsy and misdirected pass rush was a major reason for Baltimore's offensive success. Jones was frequently hurried and pressured by the Brown rush, but most of the time he escaped and the Colts gained yardage. Jones, in fact, was Baltimore's leading rusher, roaming through the Browns for 50 yards on 4 carries. Where the Browns have failed, the Colts have succeeded. Ted Marchibroda's defense leads the league in sacks, and in this game against Cleveland, they limited the Browns to a single touchdown to ensure a 21-7 Baltimore victory. The Browns have yet to win a game. The future belongs to a couple of budding quarterbacks who lead teams which are still searching for identity in Miami's division. Baltimore's Burt Jones and Buffalo's Joe Ferguson met last week in a game which matched the middle teams of the AFC East. Ferguson opened up by adding to his league-leading total of touchdown passes. In the past, O.J. Simpson scored mainly from the rush line, but with Ferguson's newborn confidence and dexterity at the passing game, the Juice has taken on yet another role, coming up with 3 touchdown catches in the last 2 games. Running circle routes out of the backfield may be fine for a change of pace, but what number 32 does best is start from scratch with a little help from his friend. Last week, behind O.J. Simpson's running and receiving, the Bills jumped to a 21-0 first quarter lead over Baltimore. O.J. is the NFL's most productive offensive performer, but Buffalo is not whole. Injuries have seriously depleted the defensive secondary, and after some tentative probing underneath, Burt Jones went up top to show off his howitzer right arm. Roger Carr burned the Bills for 94 yards, and the fallacy in Buffalo's playoff plans had been exposed. Joe Ferguson came back throwing again, this time to Bob Chandler. But lately, it doesn't seem to matter what kind of lead they are handed. The Bills just can't seem to hang on. Credit some of Buffalo's problems last week to a sturdy young quarterback who leads pro football's most improved team. Last season, Baltimore was 2-12, but Burt Jones and his explosive offense has finally given Colt owner Robert Irsay reason to smile. The equally young defense is playing its part as well. In all of 1974, Baltimore recorded only 21 quarterback sacks. This year, after 8 games, they are tied with Houston for the NFL lead with 31. Behind its brutal defense, Baltimore finally took charge of the game, knocking Joe Ferguson out of action and turning the ball over to number 26, Lydell Mitchell. After 2 seasons as doormats, the gleeful Colts were now pouring it on as Mitchell blasted over 3 times to clinch a wild 42-35 Baltimore victory. By game's end, Baltimore was on the way up with a 4-4 record. Buffalo was slipping badly to 5-3. In Baltimore, there has been a long tradition of men who could put the ball in the end zone. And last week, a lot of those men, like jogging back Tom Matty, were on hand in Memorial Stadium for a trip down memory lane as the Colts held an old-timers reunion. One old-timer who looked like he still has the moves was Lenny Moore, who scored 113 career touchdowns, including 20 in 1964, to become the Colts' all-time leader. But times have changed, and the old guard has passed. Today's Colts are young, the 6th youngest team in the NFL. But like their predecessors, they know how to move that ball under the goalposts. The leader of the youth wave is quarterback Burt Jones, who can pass and can run. But there's more to it than that, because Jones leads by example. The example he sets is scramble, gamble, claw, and crawl. Just get results. It's a style teammates like number 26, Lydell Mitchell, have adopted to the utmost. And last week, the New York Jets stood hopelessly by as Jones, Mitchell, and company swamped them 52-19. The 52 points was the most registered by a Baltimore team since 1964, the year Lenny Moore set his record. Last week, the Colts were thunder on the ground and lightning in the air. This 90-yard Burt Jones to Roger Carr hookup broke a Colt record for the longest pass play. The old record was 89 yards, held jointly by Carr and Jones, who did it 2 weeks ago, and John Unitas and John Mackey, who did it in 1966. So the vibrant young Colts are in awesome company and breaking some heady records already. Throughout last Sunday, the Colt herd continued to stampede to pay dirt as number 23, Don McCauley, galloped in to make the score 28-6 before the half. There is no doubt that the Jets are in serious trouble, and flashes of brilliance like this Joe Namath to Ed Bell pass are increasingly rare. More familiar is the sight of Joe being jumped. He's been sacked 25 times this year already. This time by a Colt defense whose 36 sacks leads the NFL. So while Namath was assisted to his feet, Jones kept the Colts flying on this shot to Glenn Doughty. For Jones, it capped a 277-yard, 3-touchdown day, and he retired from the game early with a slight injury. But Baltimore kept right on rolling as Marty Domrese brought home the points, which put the Colts on top as the NFL scoring leaders. Let's not forget that Baltimore defense, because they too chipped in on number 72, defensive end Fred Cook's recovery run. Baltimore's record now stands at 5-4, and their defense is rapidly catching up to the offense in terms of efficiency. So maybe those Miami Dolphins better keep a wary eye. In typical fashion, the Dolphins scored on their first possession last Sunday with this Greasy to Jim Mandy combination. A repeat clearly shows how a top-caliber team like the Dolphins can capitalize on an opponent's confusion. In addition to Mandage's 6-pointer, the conference-leading Dolphins came up with another score on this drive-concluding dive by number 36, Don Nottingham. But much to the disappointment of Miami head coach Don Shula, no more Dolphin touchdowns would be celebrated against the young and highly charged defenders of the Baltimore Colts. Fittingly, it was their aggressive and fast pursuing defensive unit that accounted for the Colts' first 2 points as Miami running back Benny Malone was tackled in his own end zone for a safety. And while the Colts' defense against the run was impressive, so too was its play against the pass. Number 52, linebacker Tom McLeod, nabbed this greasy aerial, and 50 yards later, the Colts were poised for their first touchdown of the afternoon. With Burt Jones forced to the sidelines with bruised ribs, reserve quarterback Marty Domrese was commissioned to the Colts' helm and immediately sent number 23, Don McCauley, crashing into the Dolphin end zone. Attempting to ease the pressure of the 14-9 contest, Bob Greasy dropped back to pass and ran head-on into a cruel fate. Somewhere in his scrambling, a toe tendon was torn, and quite suddenly his services for the remainder of the season were very much doubted. But while Miami's veteran offense sunk further into a mire of injuries, the young Colts offense gained momentum on each successive play. And although a penalty erased this fine Lydell Mitchell touchdown, one play later, Roosevelt Leaks made a Colts score imminent with a 17-yard burn to the Miami 1-yard line. Facing a 16-14 Colt lead, 41-year-old Earl Morrill proved an uninspiring replacement for Bob Greasy. In the gathering wake of the upset, the Domrays-led Colts offense began a stampede to the Dolphin end zone. The fourth quarter was clearly dominated by the Colts, and Coach Don Shula was a study of consternation on the sideline. But nothing Shula and his team could do was stopping the Colt running attack led by Lydell Mitchell, number 26, who accounted for over 100 yards and the game's longest scoring play. With the score standing at 26-17, the young Colt defensive line squared off opposite the heralded Miami line and forged themselves a great deal of respect. Twice Morrill was sacked, and the harassment resulted in only one completion in 10 attempts. Interceptions proved costly also, as number 53 Stan White returned this pass to the Miami 2-yard line. From there, the final Colt score summed up the 33-17 Baltimore upset. With the victory, the now rebuilt Colts moved within one game of the Dolphins in the Eastern Division. In a quest to become a contending team, they have now won 5 games in a row and averaged an explosive 39 points per game in doing so. Curiously, a shake and bake chant was heard repeatedly from the Colts sidelines during the game, and in the wildly celebrating Baltimore locker room, receiver Glenn Doughty was asked to explain this peculiar slogan.
Tell him, Daddy! Tell him what shake and bake is, Daddy! Shake and bake is what we call putting our opponents in the oven and cooking. And we've had a thing going around for the last 4 or 5 weeks since we took fire, and we've been cooking people. And we just having fun as a group, and we call ourselves the Shake and Bake Squad. All right?
Miami bearded Burt Jones, who with his Oriole cap on his head and chaw of red man in his cheek looked more like a pitcher than a passer. But Jones is a passer who, among last week's starters, has the lowest interception percentage in the AFC. His opponent last week was Lynn Dawson, who was drafted the same year as Jim Brown and Paul Hornung, 1957. Last week, Dawson and the Chiefs faced High Noon and a gang of young renegades from the Colt defense who were bent on retiring the master gunfighter. All afternoon, Dawson was hounded, hunted, and brought down. When he complained of the rough treatment, he was delivered more of the same. Six times the Colts' league-leading sackers roared in, their young guns blazing. The pose was posterior pointed skyward, an embarrassing position for one of the great ones. But all things must pass, except the Chiefs, who tried to run to avoid the sack and ended up being treated like a turkey wishbone. When his only recourse seemed to be up top, Dawson was harried and hurried this throw, which number 20, Jackie Wallace, returned 42 yards for a 7-0 Colt lead. For Kansas City coach Paul Wiggin, the day was a study in frustration. Then came the deluge, and it wore number 7 in blue. He's only in his 3rd year, but he's got the young Colts on a 6-game winning streak. And although it may sound like sacrilege, Burt Jones is going to soon dim some people's memories about John Unitas if he keeps passing the way he has been. Jones' completion percentage for the season is nearing 60%, and this strike to Ray Chester just about wrapped it up for the Colts. With the issue all but dead, Lynn Dawson drove the Chiefs for 2 scores to prove that no matter how old he gets, the man can put a couple in the end zone on pride and wisdom alone. But while Dawson and Jones were the focal points of the day, the play of the day was presented by running back Lydell Mitchell, who burst around left end for 70 yards. With their 28-14 triumph proudly in hand, the Colts are gearing up for their all-or-nothing showdown with the Miami Dolphins. The game will be played in Baltimore, and a Colt win in that one could mean that a team which in the early going was 1-4 will end up in the playoffs. Burt Jones has brought his gang a far piece in a short time.
For Baltimore Colt head coach Ted Marchibroda, 7 straight victories are the end result of a potent offense and an awesome defense, and built on the muscle of young studs like number 78 John Dutton. The energetic Colts are making a name for themselves. Quarterbacks attempting to solve the Baltimore defense have met with frustration, pain, and embarrassment. The frustration comes from trying to throw while laying on the ground. The pain comes from being one of the 55 quarterback sacks which the Colts have forced thus far to lead the entire NFL. And the embarrassment? That's the result when a pass filters into the hands of a Colt defender who totes it all the way back the distance. In Baltimore's 21-0 blitz of the New York Giants last Sunday, the Colt defense scored its 2nd touchdown in 2 weeks. Linebacker Stan White scooted in from 23 yards out as Baltimore tuned up for this week's showdown with the division-leading Miami Dolphins. Blending a tenacious, rock-tough defense with a score-from-anywhere offense, led by rifle-armed Burt Jones, the Colts have shown the ability to get a lot of yards in a hurry. However, more than just a big play team, a steady ground attack pace by all-purpose runner Lydell Mitchell affords Baltimore the luxury of controlling opponents with a slashing, ball control attack. Last Sunday, Mitchell became the first Baltimore runner ever to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season, a feat surpassing even the great Lenny Moore and Alan Amici. But amid the joys of victory were omens of future uncertainty, as late in the game, Burt Jones was forced out with re-injured ribs. Jones's recovery for the coming confrontation with Miami will be vital to the Colts.
Early this season, the Baltimore Colts were marked as a team of the future. Well, on Sunday, the future became the present as Baltimore's first sellout crowd in 4 years saw their inspired Colts challenge the wounded Miami Dolphins for a spot in the playoffs.
Okay, man, just 2 things now, man. Number 1, keep our poise throughout the game. Number 2, minutes. How bad do we want it now? Let's go!
Both coaches devised basic game plans. Ted Marchibroda kept his simple because his team is young and inexperienced in big game pressure. Don Shula kept his plans basic also, relying on his veteran offensive line to protect his untested third-string quarterback, Don Strock, and also to clear the flanks for Miami's swiftest runner, Mercury Morris. Morris' touchdown late in the third period gave Miami a 7-0 lead. Usually a single touchdown is no cause for celebration, but a Dolphin victory seemed imminent because their patched up but poised defense had completely muffled Baltimore's big bang offense. Lydell Mitchell, the third leading rusher in the NFL, was averaging less than 2 yards a carry, and quarterback Burt Jones had moved the Colts across midfield only twice in 3.5 quarters of play. But late in the fourth quarter, the Colts pieced together a drive. Jones completed 6 passes, and Mitchell ran 4 times. His last carry was a 6-yard touchdown run, and it sent the game into sudden death overtime.
All right, again, remember now, the first score wins now, man. First score, 110% from everybody now. Damn it, the ball's in our hands.
As the Chesapeake Bay fog rolled in, the figures on the field took on the guise of ghostly apparitions. And Burt Jones needed 96 yards to realize his impossible dream. The impossible dream had suddenly become reality for the Baltimore Colts, and an unforgettable nightmare for the Miami Dolphins.
When the Baltimore Colts trotted on the field for their final game of the season, the crowd stood and cheered. The fans wanted the Colts to win, sure, but the salute the team received was more of a thank you for bringing back the thrill of winning football to one of the great pro cities. The Colts defeated the New England Patriots 34-21 and thus achieved the most remarkable turnaround in the history of the NFL. Last season, Baltimore's record was 2 wins and 12 losses, the worst in the league. At the beginning of this season, they lost 4 out of their first 5 games. Then they suddenly caught fire and burned through the league with 9 consecutive victories and won first place in the Eastern Division of the AFC. This incredible turnaround was largely the work of General Manager Joe Thomas and his head coach Ted Marchibroda. Under Marchibroda's direction, the Colt offense made the greatest improvement in the league. Last year, they scored 190 points. This season, they rolled up 395. Last year, quarterback Burt Jones threw 8 touchdown passes. This season, he threw 18. Our offensive philosophy has not been what I expected, said Marchibroda. I thought we'd play more ball control, but Bert has that explosive quality. So we've designed our game plans around what he can do, not what we'd like him to do. In addition to passing, Jones can run well enough to be Baltimore's second leading ground gainer, and no quarterback in pro football this season rushed for as many yards as Jones. Jones' versatility is surpassed only by Lydell Mitchell, number 26. For the second season in a row, Mitchell led the AFC in pass receiving. But this year, his most valuable contributions to Baltimore came as a runner. Only O.J. Simpson and Franco Harris gained more yards rushing than Mitchell, who became the first running back in Colt history to gain more than 1,000 yards. Another big factor in Baltimore's rags to riches season was the improved play of their front four, who led the NFL with 59 sacks. Each member of this foursome is a monument to the drafting genius of Joe Thomas. Number 63, Mike Barnes, and number 76, Joe Ehrman, were the first two draft picks of 1973. In 1974, Fred Cook, number 72, was Thomas' second draft choice. Big John Dutton, number 78 from Nebraska, was number 1. Supporting this relentless rush line was an alert, ball-hawking secondary led by Jackie Wallace, number 20, a Minnesota Viking cast-off whom Thomas picked off the waiver list. Baltimore led the NFL in interceptions returned for touchdowns with 4. And this one by Nelson Muncie, number 31, clinched last Sunday's victory over the Patriots. And the Colts ended their season as the Cinderella champions of 1975.
On the other hand, head coach Ted Marchibroda is glad he chose not to leave the Baltimore Colts. 1975's Coach of the Year nearly abandoned Baltimore. But a closer look turns up 3 pretty good reasons to stick around. Number 1, the Sack Pack, formerly the Looney Tunes, alias the best pass rushing line in pro football a year ago. 59 times they sat on opposing quarterbacks in 1975. And the off-season has merely sharpened their skills. Marchibroda's second reason for returning commands the Colts' offensive fortunes. A year ago, under Marchibroda's tutelage, Bert Jones blossomed into one of the NFL's finest all-around quarterbacks. The super-talented youngster combines all the raw physical tools of youth with all the poise and cool of a 10-year veteran. And though he occasionally meets insurmountable odds, his rapport with wide receiver Glenn Doughty has become a formidable scoring weapon. The Sack Pack. Bert Jones to Glenn Doughty, and 1,000-yard rusher Lydell Mitchell, number 26. 3 pretty good, solid reasons for Ted Marchibroda to hang around Baltimore a while. And you can bet the Super Bowl was in the back of his mind. Cake Corners, where the Bengals and Colts got together in a barn-burning, head-knocking struggle that turned out to be the most exciting game of the week. The Baltimore Colts fired the first volley of the day when Burt Jones unloaded a pass to Roger Carr, number 81. And Carr finished the 68-yard play with plenty of room to spare, a victory salute to the fans, and an impressive dipper dunk. No less impressive was the play of Cincinnati's Tommy Casanova, number 37, as the Bengals forged dramatically to a 17-7 lead. Again, the Colts' nuclear strike force began pushing buttons. And again, it was a Jones-Carr seeking missile as Baltimore closed to within 20-14 at the half. Although the second half was mostly a battle of the trenches, it was again a Jones-to-Carr big bomb of 65 yards that paved the way to a final 28-27 Colt victory. And in Crab Cake Corners, where only a short time ago a coach and his owner were doing a clever imitation of a Burton-Taylor breakup, victory and a rifle arm have turned discord into a voluble and harmonious fiesta. In Dallas, Burt Jones and the high-scoring Colts did not have such an easy time of it. During the past year or so, Burt Jones has been one of the NFL's hottest quarterbacks. But last Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys found a way to cool him off, at least temporarily. But every time it seemed that the rifle could not fire another shot, back would come Burt, and the Colts would be at it again. Despite numerous injuries, Jones loves to challenge a defense directly, and this makes him doubly dangerous, as long as he remains reasonably healthy. Roger Staubach, on the other hand, has learned that it is easier to trick people than it is to run over them. Wide receiver Drew Pearson's pass to wide receiver Golden Richards was the first touchdown for Dallas on a day when the Cowboys had to come from behind 4 different times. And if you have to come from behind, these receivers are not a bad group to aim for. They are, in fact, 3 of the prime reasons that Roger Staubach is off to a faster start than any other NFL passer. Against Baltimore, Staubach completed 22 of 28 for 339 yards, including this one to perfectly positioned Billy Joe Dupree for the touchdown which put Dallas ahead 27-24. But Baltimore tied the score with just 28 seconds to play. And there were only 12 seconds left when Staubach launched this pass for his favorite clutch receiver, Drew Pearson. As number one, place kicker Efren Herrera said later, Drew Pearson made it easy for me with that catch on the 14. I was ready to kick one 50 yards to win it. But either way, I'm happy. Too bad, in Baltimore, quarterbacks were having their problems too. Even the highly praised Burt Jones was not above an untimely slip-up or two. But it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who suffered the most embarrassment as they made numerous errors and at one point allowed the Colts to score on 7 straight possessions. In fact, one of the best plays of the day for the Bucs was made by their fearless phantom tackler, who came cleverly disguised as a field official. But in the end, not even 10 shiploads of Buccaneers could stop the Pony Express as Jones to number 26, Lydell Mitchell, accounted for 24 yards and a touchdown. And then it was Jones to number 81, Roger Carr, for 48 yards, and a 42-17 victory, which left the 3-1 Colts tied for first with the Patriots in the AFC's Eastern Division. In Baltimore, half the city worked overtime to prepare 134,000 balloons for a pre-kickoff launch. But the surging Baltimore Colts don't need any gimmicks to win football games. Their success lies in a dynamic ball control attack that moves equally well on land and through the air. An offense that controls the tempo of every contest while covering gridiron real estate in wholesale chunks. In a 21-point second quarter against Miami, Burt Jones moved the Colts through the Dolphins almost at will. Wide receiver Glenn Doughty is but one of Baltimore's many and varied offensive weapons. Jones can call a lot of numbers inside an opponent's 20-yard line, and he doesn't hesitate to call his own. The frustrated Dolphins turned to 42-year-old Earl Morrall in the second half, and for a moment, the game's elder statesman tapped a reservoir of that old come-from-behind magic. But Morrall's fine pass and Nat Moore's finer individual effort merely reopened an issue that the Colts thought they had settled earlier in the afternoon. And so, Baltimore turned loose the sack pack to resolve the matter once and for all. Baltimore now has defeated Don Shula's Dolphins 3 consecutive times. This past Sunday, they won convincingly, regaining sole possession of first place in the AFC East. And as night settled upon Memorial Stadium, one could sense the end of an era. In Buffalo, new head coach Jim Ringo looked for help anywhere he could get it. And the first place he found it was way downfield, as a long Joe Ferguson pass caught up with last year's NFL rushing champion O.J. Simpson in the Baltimore Colts end zone. Simpson's touchdown gave Buffalo the lead 13-10 in the second quarter, but the Bills were unable to score again, due in good part to the ferocious Baltimore sack pack. After three quarters, Burt Jones and company led by only 17-13. But in the fourth period, the Colts pulled away from the slumping Bills and padded their victory margin to a convincing 31-13. For the Colts, it was another joyful fourth period on the way to an apparent postseason playoff position. For Coach Jim Ringo and the Bills, it's back to the old drawing board. As Ringo said after the game, we still have some people who have to understand that football is a game you play for 4 quarters. His quarterback, Burt Jones, the most explosive weapon in the game. Last Sunday against the Jets, Jones backed up his coach's boast by passing for 300 yards and leading the Colts to their 6th victory. Jones, who is the league's highest-rated passer, threw 2 scoring passes to Roger Carr, number 81. We didn't play that well, said Burt. In fact, the final score made the teams look more evenly matched than they were.
At mid-season, the Colts were alone in first with a 6-1 record and ready for a Monday night encounter with Dan Pastorini and the Houston Oilers. The sack pack reached the quarterback 6 times, while on offense, Lydell Mitchell showed the nation why he was the leading rusher in the conference. Lydell Mitchell set them up, and number 48, Roosevelt Leaks, twice cashed them in. The Colts made it look easy, especially when long-legged rookie running back Ron Lee, number 34, took one all the way. The Colts impressed everyone as they easily downed the Oilers 38-14.
In sunny San Diego, even a funky disco rain dance failed to keep the Chargers from being drowned by the Baltimore Colts. All-purpose back Lydell Mitchell, number 26, amassed over 200 yards running and receiving and made everything look easy. A coach once said that he liked to see the ball in the air a lot because it was easier to follow. With Burt Jones' velocity, it ain't necessarily so. To combat the Jones to number 81 Roger Carr connection, the Chargers concocted a scheme of blitzes to disrupt the young quarterback's rhythm. This rush looked like it worked, didn't it? Wrong. Not only was a personal foul called, but Jones' quick release, even in retreat, resulted in a second touchdown by Carr. Jones so demoralized the Chargers that when he left, all that faced reserve quarterback Bill Troop was a team of phantoms and an empty end zone. The Colts have grown stronger with each passing week, and they are not about to relinquish their stranglehold on the AFC East. While they are cresting, Tommy Prothro's Chargers are decomposing. Once 3-0, they are now 4-5 and fading fast. They need a catalyst, maybe someone like Clint One Punch Longley, whose 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes salvaged some credibility for San Diego. The Chargers are now respectable, not awful. That is nice, but still a far cry from contention in the West. Colts 37, Chargers 21. AFC rushing leader Lydell Mitchell was not so fortunate, as defense keyed the Patriots' 21-14 victory over Baltimore. Mitchell gained just 52 yards, and Burt Jones could find bombs-away buddy Roger Carr for just 1 early score. Jones kept trying, but after his early burning, rookie Mike Haynes, number 40, intercepted 2 passes intended for Carr, and the NFL's highest-scoring offense could put just 14 points on the board. More than anything, the Patriot defense led New England to its 7th victory in 10 starts. For the Pats got only 21 points, usually not enough to beat Baltimore. The Colts averaging 31 points in their first 9 games. Steve Grogan's short touchdown pass and 8th and 9th touchdowns of the year had New England ahead 21-14 at the half, the ultimate final score. Desperate for the tying touchdown, Jones kept trying for a quick strike, but New England shut out the Baltimore Colts for the entire second half and moved to 1 game behind in the AFC East Division race, behind the frustrated Colts.
Colts' 6-game win streak had finally ended. It was now time to play what Coach Ted Marchibroda calls Colt football. We win on offense, on defense, on special teams, with whatever it takes to win. And the following Monday night, the special teams made the difference in Miami.
In New York, the Jets knew they had to put up some points to upset the NFL's highest-scoring team, the Baltimore Colts. So they repeatedly got the ball to their leading rusher and receiver, the remarkable free agent rookie from Wake Forest, Clark Gaines, number 21. As he has done repeatedly, Gaines accounted for more than 100 yards for the Jets. But he couldn't match his more experienced Baltimore counterpart, Lydell Mitchell, number 26. Mitchell added another 150-plus yards to his total of more than 1,600 combined yards for the season. And Mitchell is one of those rare performers who prefers to let someone else take care of the celebrations. Roger Carr added his 10th touchdown of the season from the league's top-ranked passer, Burt Jones. The man Joe Namath says is in a class all by himself. The Colts won 33-16 and clinched a spot in the playoffs. In St. Louis last week, Burt Jones, the NFL's top-ranked quarterback, led the NFL's top-ranked offense with passes like this one to Roger Carr. The Baltimore Colts have scored 359 points so far this season, the most in the NFL, and that is due in good part to the classic rifle belonging to the Jones boy. This touchdown by number 87, tight end Raymond Chester, brought the Colts close in the third quarter. But Baltimore could get no closer, partly because of some new red-dogging defenses, which the Cardinals coaches devised especially for Burt Jones and the Colts. The main difference in the game was that the Cardinals suffered only 1 turnover while taking 5 away from the usually sure-handed Colts. Baltimore has been the league's best pass-rushing team for the past 2 seasons. But this quality was nullified by the Great Wall of St. Louis, allowing Jim Hart and the NFC's top-ranked offense enough time to hit for big plays through the air. Number 88, third-year tight end J.V. Kane came up with several clutch catches for the Big Red. The game's biggest play was the kind everyone has come to expect from Mr. Wonderful, Terry Metcalf. The Cardinals had to win, and they did win 24-17. St. Louis was still in the playoff picture and hoping for some help this weekend from the Dallas Cowboys in their game against the Washington Redskins. You know, if looks didn't lie, you just might think Ted Marchibroda's team hadn't won a game all season. But last week in Baltimore, the Buffalo Bills gave the playoff-bound Colts only one moment of genuine concern. O.J. Simpson's 44-yard touchdown highlighted yet another spectacular performance for the Juice, who cruised to a 4th NFL rushing title in 5 seasons. The rest of the afternoon belonged to the man with the strongest arm in football. Burt Jones and Roger Carr rank as pro football's finest long ball combination. It seems they could run this play in street clothes. The Jones-Carr connection typifies Baltimore's multifaceted air game, a diverse attack whose receivers will travel anywhere with a Burt Jones pass. But no matter where success leads them, the Colt air game works. Roger Carr, Glenn Doughty, and tight end Raymond Chester, number 87, can penetrate any defense and have the credentials to prove it. This week, the Colts' league-leading offense challenges pro football's finest defense in the Steel Curtain. Last year, Pittsburgh brushed the Colts aside en route to the Super Bowl. This year, things may be different.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Metropolitan Stadium.
Hold it in the air, please.
Heads.
Heads, he called.
40 men together can't lose. Okay.
The Baltimore Colts aren't concerned with a comeback, but rather a continuation of last season. Burt Jones to Roger Carr showed mid-season form last Sunday as the Seattle Seahawks fell 29-14. Armed with last season's formula for success and stronger still in other areas, the facts are only teams with exceptional strength will seriously challenge the Colts this season.
In the second game, Don McCauley scored twice as the Colts easily defeated the New York Jets.
Meanwhile, in Baltimore, the Colts were hoping to ride roughshod over the Bills. They began by corralling O.J. Simpson and holding him to a less than juicy 52 yards rushing. Forced to the air, Bills quarterback Joe Ferguson found a highly unusual method of putting 6 points on the scoreboard. Now, just follow the bouncing ball. Number 47, Curtis Brown, finally came up with a much-traveled pass, and the Bills had 14 points. When Baltimore had the ball, Burt Jones led his forces to a 17-point afternoon. Not exactly a big splurge for the Colts, who've been racked by injuries to important personnel, but it was enough to keep their record squeaky clean. So now the Colts are 3-0 and the Bills are 0-3. What's it all mean? Well, just follow the bouncing helmet. While web feet were the order of the day in New England, in Baltimore, spikes would do nicely. Here the Colts and the Miami Dolphins were paired, and with a fast track beneath them, 792 yards were amassed by these two unbeaten teams. Miami has emerged as one of the NFL's biggest big play teams this season. With such talents as number 86 Freddie Solomon, who breezed 90 yards against the Colts, the Dolphins have shown the ability to travel a long way in a split second. Whether sailing on the arm of Bob Greasy to grease lightning receivers like Solomon and Duriel Harris, or speeding on the gallop of Benny Malone, number 32, the Dolphins showed their AFC Eastern rival it has the dynamite to do a lot of damage. Malone tallied once from 52 yards out, then revved his motor and bounded 28-point first-half performance by the streaking Dolphins. Miami's explosion would have ripped any other team apart, but their opponents were a team that knows something about the big play. It's a measure Baltimore has in abundance, the least of which goes by the tag of Mr. Versatile, Lydell Mitchell, number 26. This 64-yard Mitchell beauty got things rolling on the game's first play. And while Miami thundered and volleyed for scores of great length, Burt Jones steadied the Colts with a mixed diet of touchdowns. Tight end Raymond Chester held on for the go-ahead at 31-28. Then Jones put the game away with 2 strikes to wide receiver Glenn Doughty. In the end, it was a steadier Baltimore team that outgunned a freewheeling Miami club 45-28. A pleasing sign indeed for Colt head coach Ted Marchibroda. Baltimore took their glimmering unbeaten mark to Kansas City last Sunday in a tune-up game for this week's AFC Eastern Division showdown with the Patriots. Their leader is number 7 quarterback Burt Jones, last year's NFL Player of the Year. Number 7 is a blueprint of the perfect quarterback, owning all the physical as well as mental attributes needed for greatness. But what helps Jones shine is a polished offensive supporting cast, diverse in its methods of fire. Using the big play as the exception rather than the rule, Jones kept close to the vest, using runners Ron Lee, Don McCauley, and Lydell Mitchell to pick the Chiefs apart and move virtually at will. Yet for all their movement down near the goal line, Baltimore found further progress difficult indeed. Baltimore failed to score here and would manage only 2 other short touchdowns on the afternoon. It was a bewildering experience for this team, which is used to racking up many points each afternoon. Yet today, Jones and company were safe, for 17 points would be plenty as Kansas City was stonewalled by the sack pack, an improved version of the Colts defense, which has helped Baltimore into the playoffs during consecutive years. Colts strongmen like John Dutton, number 78, made life miserable for chief runners and quarterbacks alike, turning Kansas City's offense into a state of confusion. The men in red were held to a single touchdown despite several other opportunities to make a game of it, as the Colts knocked Kansas City back to their 5th straight defeat. When it was over, Baltimore had shown it just may be the coming monster of the NFL. While the Washington Redskins seem to be fast fading, the New England Patriots appear to be coming on strong. The problems that earlier cost them 2 of their first 3 games at last seemed ironed out. And last Sunday, the Patriots set AFC Eastern Division rival Baltimore out to dry. Burt Jones' offense failed to register 90 yards of total offense and limped away without so much as a touchdown. New England's Steve Grogan, on the other hand, proved poised and precise, withstanding the infamous sack pack rather well. The Patriots controlled play throughout as Grogan baffled Baltimore with an offensive scheme designed to drop the Colts from the ranks of the unbeaten. Darrell Stingley's 4 pass receptions exceeded 100 yards, and Grogan's flip to multi-purpose tight end Russ Francis put the game away for good. (17-3) was the final as the all-powerful New England machine churned past the Colts to further tighten this divisional race. Baltimore quarterback Burt Jones was acting downright coldish before a very important game with the Steelers, a team that rudely crushed his Super Bowl dreams last December in the playoffs. What a difference a year makes. On this Sunday, the Colts did not sit back on their heels and wait for something good to happen. They made it happen. Off play action, Jones isolated running back Roosevelt Leaks on linebacker Lauren Taves, number 51, and the result was a lead the Colts never relinquished. The once unyielding steel curtain defense was pointedly papier-mâché against Baltimore, and the concussive thud of hard hits was replaced by some high-pitched whining. Baltimore running backs ghosted into the dead spots of the Steelers' zone, where Burt Jones found them for easy touchdowns. The Colts have always hoped to lessen the burden on overworked Lydell Mitchell, number 26, and now they may have that luxury with the emergence of Ron Lee, number 34, as another hard-nosed touchdown maker. Baltimore's swarming defense stifled the Pittsburgh attack for 3 quarters. And when the game was in the bag, they allowed 2 meaningless touchdowns by Franco Harris that made the final score Colts 31, Steelers 21. While the Colts star is ascending in the AFC East.
On a wet Monday night in Memorial Stadium, despite weather that resembled a monsoon, nearly 58,000 braved the conditions to greet their neighbors from Washington. Freddie Scott scored the only touchdown of the evening in the Colts' 10-3 win, their 7th in 8 games.
The Baltimore Colts and Buffalo Bills proved once and for all that boxing is dead. In the tradition of Richard Dunn, Alfredo Evangelista, and Jean-Pierre Koopman, the Lion of Flanders, everyone auditioned as the next bum of the month for Muhammad Ali.
in a more serious moment, the Bills rope-a-dope the Colts when rookie John Kimbrough, number 82 from tiny St. Cloud State, raced 73 yards with a punt. The score gave Buffalo a short-lived 7-0 lead as the Colts defense, led by linebacker Tom McLeod, number 52, blitzed into the pass pocket of Joe Ferguson. The good running teams all have unselfish lead blockers like number 48 Roosevelt Leaks, who often paves a clear route for Lydell Mitchell, number 26. Mitchell scored twice and presented such a danger to Buffalo that when he was used as a decoy, the feints opened up the field for quarterback Burt Jones. If promoter Don King is interested, Jones has an excellent straight right hand, and the Baltimore Colts had enough punch to beat the Bills by a TKO 31-13. Just when Coach Walt Michaels of the Jets had turned his team from horrible to respectable, he was burdened with the loss of his star quarterback Richard Todd. So last week he watched in envy as Baltimore's Burt Jones hijacked his Jets and held them for a 33-point ransom. This 53-yard hookup from Jones to tight end Raymond Chester began the Baltimore Colts version of the Calgary Stampede. Burt was hotter than a smoking pistol, 45 Colt type naturally, as he passed for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. This one a 33-yard shot to Glenn Doughty. Most quarterbacks throw best while standing statuesque in the pocket. But like the Sundance Kid, the Jones boy fires deadly when he's moving, this time to running back Lydell Mitchell. And as if they needed it, the Colt offense got help from the special teams when a David Lee punt sneaked through the Jets' return man, who then went on to compound the error. Baltimore guard Robert Pratt, number 61, was on the winning end of all this largesse as he charged into the end zone to give the Colts a 33-12 victory and to make their record along with Denver's the best in pro football at 9-1. In Denver, the Broncos and Colts were not concerned with the bottom of a division ladder. They met to see who would be on the top rung of the entire league ladder. With touchdown passes from Craig Morton to wide receivers Jack Dalbin and Rick Upchurch, number 80, the Broncos kicked up a 14-3 lead. But Burt Jones, who threw 20 of his 27 completions to running backs Don McCauley and Lydell Mitchell, number 26, brought the Colts back. Mitchell's touchdown cut the Denver lead to 14-13. And in the fourth quarter, Jones nickeled and dimed the Colts to the Denver 30-yard line when the Orange Crush turned the game around. Instead of going ahead, the Colts fell further behind on Tom Jackson's 73-yard interception return, the longest in Bronco history. But more important, this touchdown and a later TD gave Denver a 27-13 victory. And with a 10-1 record, the best in the NFL, the Broncos stand alone at the top of the National Football League.
A Monday night rematch with the Dolphins in a fight for first that was a must for Miami. A loss would eliminate the Dolphins from the race, Thus, the Colts had control of their own destiny. But Baltimore errors, like this costly end zone fumble by Roosevelt Leaks, handed Miami the game. Baltimore managed merely 6 points in their second straight loss and were now tied for first place. Instead of a commanding lead in their division, a dogfight had developed among the Colts, Dolphins, and Patriots. In the season,
the Baltimore Colts were considered sure winners against the also-ran Detroit Lions of the NFC Central. But on this most strange Sunday afternoon, the famous scoring machine of Burt Jones was rudely shut down by an inspired pride of Lions. While the Colts were turning the ball over 5 times, a second-year quarterback from Purdue named Gary Danielson was completing 17 of 32 passes for the Lions. Detroit led 6-3 for most of the fourth quarter. But then with less than 5 minutes left, Burt Jones finally found the way to the end zone. Number 26, Lydell Mitchell, had caught a league-leading 66 passes, had rushed for more than 1,000 yards for the third straight year, and had scored the touchdown, which seemed to wrap up a 10-6 victory for Baltimore. But then with just 9 seconds to play, David Lee's attempt to punt was snuffed by Leonard Thompson, who fielded the bouncing ball and scored the touchdown, which turned what appeared to be a certain Colt victory into a sudden and shocking victory for Detroit. For the Colts, it was a surprising third consecutive loss. But with a win over the New England Patriots this week, the Colts will still be able to capture their third straight division title.
At safety, number 44, Lyle Blackwood.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Baltimore Colt football. This is Chuck Thompson along with Vince Bagley at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. And this is the Sunday. This is the day that will make or break the Baltimore Colts year.
If they can handle New England, they deserve to be champions. If they cannot handle New England, they will not be champions.
Referee Frank Silva.
And the toss of the coin has just been taken care of out of the playing field, and we're about ready to go.
it was a game Coach Ted Marchibroda termed a regular season Super Bowl. But the offensive ineptness of the previous 3 weeks continued. Down 2 touchdowns to none as the second half began, things soon got even worse, and the Colts found themselves in a nearly impossible catch-up situation.
New England now has a 21-3 lead over the Baltimore Colts and just ripped off a 100-yard kickoff return.
Chuck, things were probably never darker than right now, but I tell you, if they can come on down and score now, they're still in the game.
New England now 21, the Baltimore Colts 3, and if the Colts want a championship in the National Football League this year, they are going to have to do a lot of work in very little time. Come on! This is the game. This is the moment. The time is now.
The Colts' first sustained drive in 4 games ended with a Burt Jones pass to Glenn Dowdy.
in for the touchdown.
I'll tell you, that's soon enough to make it a football game. They had to get one quickly to have any shot, and maybe this will mean something.
Get in there!
Blow him out now. Come on, blow him out.
Third and 18 from the 22. Here comes a blitz. They picked it up. Now another blitz. Jones throws down the middle. Raymond Chester's got it. Chester to the 20. Chester to the 10, to the 5. Scores.
Give them credit, brother. They're not out of this game. Now it's 24-17 on an 82-yard play.
Double flankers wide to the right side. Jones yanks away, play action fake, wants to throw, has a block, now fires, end zone. Touchdown, Scott! Touchdown to Freddie Scott.
Oh, my.
Now just 1 point behind after the flurry of touchdowns, the Colts' epic comeback was dealt a critical blow.
And Blackwood is going to have to let it roll. It takes a New England bounce and it's going deep to the Baltimore 10, to the 5, to the 2, and they down it in the 1. That ball took magical bounces for 20 yards down the near sideline to the Baltimore Colt 1-yard line. Does that psych up a defensive unit? Does it ever psych them up? Lydell Mitchell and Roosevelt Leaks, the running backs from the 1-yard line. Jones is going to throw out of the end zone. Sets up, fakes once, now fires deep. Dowdy. He's got it!
Oh, my. What a great catch, too. He had a...
In this 99-yard drive, the longest in Colt history, 4 third-down situations were converted as Baltimore reached the New England 6. Then, on the most controversial play of the year, Burt Jones seemed to fumble the ball away. The officials ruled the whistle had blown, and the Colt comeback continued.
We have that clock running with 4:15. A point behind. What a thriller.
Oh, what a football game. What a second half of football. 3rd and goal, Baltimore at the New England 3. Double tight end offense. Jones gives it to McCauley, right side. Dive! And he's got it! He's got it! He scores! McCauley has scored, and the Colts go ahead. Some agonizing looks directed toward that clock. New England's got the football in good field position.
55 yards away from the goal line, New England.
Colts 30. New England 24. Grogan is back to throw out a play action. Plenty of time. Upfield, and it's intercepted by Norm Thompson. To the 45, to midfield, and down he goes. 42,250 have witnessed one of the most exciting football games a spectator could see. 1 minute, 35 seconds.
Make it here, they win it.
If they can make it here. Leaks and McCauley, the running backs. Leaks is through the middle and open. Down to the New England 30, to the New England 20, to the 15, to the 10 goes Roosevelt Leaks.
Oh, man. Chuck, how about that? Of all the guys in the world.
They ought to give him, and they are. They're giving Roosevelt a standing ovation.
Oh, man. You talk about gutsy play. There's a guy who's fumbled going in the end zone the last 2 games. He's been the #1 goat around here.
What a comeback. This club will have one of the great ovations in recent years. New England just played their hearts out, but the Colts have won the game. It is all over. Baltimore's Memorial Stadium is an outdoor insane asylum. Joy rebounding all over the stadium. People are standing in the upper deck. They don't want to go anywhere. They're down on the playing field milling around. Memorial Stadium rockets. The great cheers for a deserving, very courageous, and most importantly, victorious Baltimore Colt football team. They got up off the deck and have put on one of the stunning comebacks of all time.
Week 15, playoff time. And were the world champion Oakland Raiders ready for a second Super Bowl championship? Number 28 running back Clarence Davis certainly was. This 30-yard touchdown by Davis was the only score of the first period last Saturday in Baltimore. But early in the second period, when Ken Stabler tried for more, Colts strong safety Bruce Laird stepped in front of Mark Van Egan and didn't stop until he had tied the game for Baltimore. The Oakland defense stymied Burt Jones and the Baltimore offense for the entire first half, except for one drive which stalled at the Raider 19, where Tony Linhart kicked a field goal which gave the Colts their first lead, 10-7 at the half. The third quarter brought a whole new ball game as Ken Stabler came out firing on his first series of the half. Cliff Ranch's clutch grab covered 41 yards and set the stage for the entrance of the game's eventual star, All-Pro tight end Dave Casper, number 87. Dave Casper's touchdown gave Oakland the lead at 14-10, but this stood up only until Ray Guy kicked off on the following play. Number 80 is Marshall Johnson, a little-known second-year receiver from Houston, who has spent his entire pro career recovering from knee surgery. But this one play by Johnson was enough to give the lead back to the Colts 17-14. And this was only to be the beginning. On the Colts' next series, Ted Hendricks blocked a David Lee punt, and once again the Raiders were in position to score. In the clutch, Ken Stabler again looked for Oakland's leading receiver, Dave Casper. And once again, the 230-pound tight end made it look easy as he put the Raiders back in front 21-17 at the end of 3 periods of play. Now involved in an excruciating seesaw battle, and despite constant pressure from the Raider rush, Burt Jones continued to fight back with the passing game. At the start of the fourth period, an 80-yard Colt drive culminated with a 4th-and-1 plunge for a touchdown by reserve fullback Ron Lee. And Baltimore was back on top, 24-21. Then on Oakland's next series, Ken Stabler again went for the bomb, and although he could not complete the pass, it worked out perfectly for the Raiders, as interference was called in the end zone on number 31, Nelson Muncie. This play set up the touchdown, which returned the lead to Oakland at 28-24. But then on Baltimore's next series, Burt Jones brought the Colts back again as he found his tight end Raymond Chester, number 87, for 30 big yards. From the Raider 43, Jones handed off 3 consecutive times to Ron Lee, and the 6'4", 230-pound fullback came through again for Baltimore. The Colts were back on top, 31-28. And then for 4 consecutive series, neither team could manage a first down. But then came the game's biggest play. With 2nd and 10 from his own 44, Ken Stabler once again looked for Dave Casper. Oakland Raiders were the AFC's best offensive team this season, and they scored more points than any other team in the NFL. But this one play to Dave Casper probably saved their season, because it set up league-leading scorer Errol Mann for the field goal, which tied the score at 31 and sent this classic confrontation into sudden death overtime. One of the NFL's most spectacular contests ended appropriately enough with a Ken Stabler touchdown pass to Dave Casper at the start of his second overtime period. For the day, Dave Casper caught just 4 passes, but every one of those 4 was a play crucial to the game's outcome. And so in a game in which the lead had changed an amazing 10 times, the world champion Raiders kept their poise and had one more very big victory to be proud of.